Why is it that among developed countries, only the US has not stagnated or lost its per capita GDP? Except for old Europe, which skipped real estate directly. Industrialization was achieved through the Great Voyage. All late developing countries start industrialization with real estate. Without exception. South Korea's so-called Han River Miracle. Japan's so-called Showa era. The so-called American Dream from the US. This is all because late developing countries lost competitiveness in shipbuilding. Only by relying on domestic residents to bear huge debts can industrial development be achieved. Otherwise, the country cannot expand its debt. Nothing can develop. And the house was the perfect fit. Debt-assuming carrier. This is an agricultural society. The process of transitioning from real estate to industrial society. This is called the first economic transformation. The real estate economy is usually sure to succeed. Because the house cannot be sold to outsiders. Only the country's residents will take on the debt. Even American interference can't stop it. During this process, GDP will definitely grow rapidly. At the same time, it will inevitably be accompanied by the rise of related industries such as white goods. Back then, the Chinese market was flooded with imported Japanese and Korean home appliances. That's the reason. Now, domestic white goods are on the rise. That's also the reason. But after the total debt the residents carry through the house becomes too high, the government must shed its real estate burden. It is also necessary to find the real estate economy to take over the market. Complete the second economic transformation. The purpose of the second economic transformation is to achieve debt outflow. This inheritance is either a ship or cars. Otherwise, there will be a crisis of industrial overcapacity. It will quickly sweep across all aspects. Debt transfers are even less out of the question. No matter how advanced the internet and computer fields are, none of these can solve the problem of regionalizing industrial capacity. The core of the second economic transformation. It can only be bulk industrial goods. Cars, ships, airplanes. The aircraft industry is generally the last priority. Because the aircraft industry struggles to consume large amounts of industrial capacity. Its debt demand is also the largest, so generally, it can only be placed there. The final step of the second economic transformation is to build, industrialized countries. They all go through a real estate bubble burst. To complete the rebirth and break out of the cocoon. The focus of economic development has shifted toward the automotive and shipbuilding sectors. Otherwise, economic decline is inevitable. This economic transformation process is extremely painful. The United States, Japan, South Korea, and now China. Without exception, it's the same process. Even our neighboring country, Vietnam. They are also trying to shed the terrifying burden of real estate. Entering the automotive industry. But in the automotive and shipbuilding industry, similarly, the market will shift from incremental to stock. The current situation in Detroit, USA, is a major contraction of the American auto market entering the stock market. So after the government saw the automotive industry oversupply, it will inevitably fully move toward the tertiary industry. That is, completing the third economic transformation. The purpose of the third economic transformation is to achieve debt outflow through the tertiary sector. The tertiary industry does not refer solely to waiters, delivery worker, lawyer, doctor, and other service-oriented industries. But everything depends on physical strength, mental strength, an industrial economic model where labor itself directly realizes debt transfer, including software, internet finance, legal services, medical, education, culture and tourism, life, domestic services, and so on. Everything depends on natural resources with minimal reliance. But the debt-to-profit ratio is extremely high. The Internet industry revolution in the United States back then. The Internet industry revolution even triggered a financial crisis. The Internet industry revolution was also the direct reason for the first US dollar title movement. The healthcare industry revolution is a typical example of the third economic transformation movement. American college students have to bear huge student loans. This is also an inevitable result of this economic model. Meanwhile, Japan and South Korea failed in their third economic transformation. Or rather, there is simply no prerequisite sovereignty for the third economic transformation. Because there is no sovereignty. Japan has had to abandon even its aircraft project. It can only rely on the results of the second economic transformation to survive. Against this backdrop, Japan and South Korea have followed the United States in doing everything possible to prevent China from completing its second economic transformation. And it was inevitable. The US now relies on the dividends of the third economic transformation. By exporting debt to the whole world, to maintain his position as the ruler of Earth. When the US discovers any country undergoing a second economic transformation, this will inevitably be done by hindering their output capacity, obstructing their debt outflow. Because after the US completed deindustrialization, there will be no crisis of overcapacity. At the same time, it has lost the foundation for continuous industrial progress. That is, the development of military technology relying on the industrial economic model. It's impossible to stay far ahead forever. There are only two ways for the tertiary sector to export debt abroad: platform management and knowledge payment.